And that's the way that I describe it. So in a reading, I basically just kind of put together all of those sensations into a cohesive message, and I have to deliver it, and then hopefully...
For years, Tyler Henry has made a living telling others what they could never possibly know. But now, he's the one facing something so deeply unsettling, it's shaken him to his core. An unexpected diagnosis has turned his world upside down, threatening not just his health, but everything he's built.
Well, you'll have to tune in season 2, actually. 2017, Hollywood Medium comes back. And as far as filmed readings go, I did a reading with Bobby Brown.
The calm, composed face people recognize is starting to crack, and the reality behind it is far more serious than anyone realized. But it's not just his health on the line. This diagnosis could affect his career, his future, and the very thing that made him who he is. So what's really happening to Hollywood's most sought-after medium? The truth is far more heartbreaking than anyone expected. The man with special abilities. Tyler Henry has built an entire career on knowing things he should not be able to know. He has sat across from grieving mothers and described the clothing their deceased children were wearing at the moment of death. He has looked at celebrities and told them about relatives who died before they were born. He has written books, hosted television shows, and built a waiting list of more than 600,000 people who want a reading. The Television Academy, the organization that hands out Emmy Awards, has called him the most sought-after clairvoyant medium in the United States and around the world. But for all his claimed abilities to see what is coming, nothing could have prepared him for the devastating health crisis that just hit him. Tyler Henry Kulawin was born on January 13, 1996, in Hanford, California, a small farming community in the central part of the state. There was nothing extraordinary about his early childhood. He was not raised by psychics or surrounded by people who claimed to speak to the dead. His family was ordinary. His town was ordinary. The first sign that something unusual was happening came in the spring of 2006, at the age of 10. He woke up one morning with an overwhelming feeling that his grandmother was about to die. He went to his mother and started explaining what he was feeling. Before he could finish, his father called with the news. His grandmother had passed away. That moment changed everything for Tyler Henry. Not because he wanted it to, but because he could not explain it away. He had not heard any gossip about his grandmother's health. He had not seen her looking frail. He had simply woken up knowing something that he should not have been able to know. At 10 years old, he made the mistake of telling a female classmate about his abilities. The classmate went home and told her mother, and the mother started a prayer circle at her church. They were not praying for Tyler's success. They were praying for his soul. The reaction from his small town was not curiosity or wonder. It was fear. He experienced bullying from classmates and community members as word spread about what he claimed he could do. A child who had done nothing wrong became an outcast because he said he could talk to the dead. He graduated high school early at 16 and enrolled in college with a very specific goal. He wanted to become a hospice nurse. He wanted to be there for people in the end. He genuinely believed he had a gift and wanted to use it to help people who were suffering. But the readings kept getting in the way. Demand grew. People started showing up at his door asking for readings. Even his college dean asked him for a reading. This was when he realized his path was not going to be in nursing. His television career began when he was barely out of his teenage years. At 20, he landed his own show on E! Called Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry. It ran for 4 seasons and made him a household name. He gave readings to some of the biggest celebrities in the world: Ellen DeGeneres, Sofia Vergara, Howie Mandel, Jim Parsons, RuPaul, Kris Jenner, Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, Boy George. The list goes on. He was a kid from a farming town in Central California, sitting across from the most famous people on the planet, telling them about their dead relatives. At 26, he starred in a Netflix series called Life After Death with Tyler Henry. The show featured 9 episodes where he worked with people from his waiting list, not celebrities. Ordinary people who had been waiting months or years for a chance to sit with him. That waiting list, at the time the show was documented, had reached 300,000 people. It has since grown to more than 600,000. At 28, he launched another Netflix series called Live from the Other Side, an 8-week live show featuring unedited readings for celebrities and non-celebrities alike. He also has a live show tour called An Evening of Hope and Healing, where he discusses his gift and gives live audience readings. He has written 2 books, and both became bestsellers. For nearly 2 decades, Tyler Henry has been telling other people what is coming. He has been the one with the answers, the one who calms fears, the one who tells grieving mothers that their children are at peace. But in the last few months, the tables have turned. The man who claims to see the future could not see what was coming for himself. The health crisis that has hit Tyler Henry is not something he ever predicted, and the irony is almost too cruel to believe. A life marked by controversies. For every person who believes Tyler Henry has a genuine gift, there is another who thinks he is a fraud. The skepticism has followed him since he was a teenager, giving readings in his small California town. It has only grown louder as his fame has increased. He acknowledges that he faces a lifetime of skepticism, ranging from religious criticism to scientific dismissal. The critics have become more organized and more vocal in recent years, and some of their arguments are difficult to dismiss. The Center for Inquiry, one of the most prominent skeptical organizations in the world, published a column in October 2024 that did not pull any punches. The author accused media companies of exploiting grieving people for profit by putting psychics like Tyler Henry on television. The column argued that these shows manipulate emotions while hiding behind the word entertainment. It said outlets ignore ethical concerns because they want clicks and money. What bothers skeptics most about Tyler Henry is how his readings are presented. On Hollywood Medium, every episode is polished and produced. Music swells at emotional moments. The camera lingers on tearful reactions. The readings that make it to air are the ones that seem to work. The misses and the moments where Henry says something that does not land are left on the cutting room floor. The critics argue that if Henry could consistently get specific, verifiable details, the production team would release those extended clips just to prove the doubters wrong. Yet, they haven't. The Alan Thicke case remains a major flashpoint in this debate. Thicke died in 2016 from an aortic dissection, which is a heart condition. Months before his death, an episode of Hollywood Medium aired where Henry warned Thicke about a possible heart problem. On the surface, it looked like proof that Henry really sees things. But skeptics have pointed out that heart disease is the #1 killer of men in America. Thicke was 69 years old, and skeptics believe that warning an older man about his heart is not exactly a risky prediction. It's simply playing the odds. The techniques critics accuse Henry of using are not new. Hot reading means getting information about a person beforehand through social media, public records, or even casual conversation with staff members. Cold reading means making broad statements that the client then fills in with specific details. Henry uses a technique called psychometry, where he holds objects that belong to the person he is reading. A celebrity might bring a wristwatch or a piece of jewelry, and Henry will describe feelings or images he gets from the object. Skeptics say that is just hot reading in disguise, because the object can be researched. They say the owner can be Googled. and that the information Henry gives does not have to come from the other side. Henry has responded to the skepticism with a surprisingly open tone. He says he's comfortable with people asking questions and believes the best way to explain his work is through demonstration. In interviews, he has acknowledged the doubt surrounding what he does and has explained that his Netflix live series gives him a chance to address it directly by performing real-time, unedited readings with high stakes. On CBS's The Talk, Henry gave a reading for co-host Jerry O'Connell. Afterward, O'Connell declared himself a true believer in Henry's abilities. He said the reading was longer than what viewers saw on air, but this statement only led to more skepticism. Critics immediately asked why the longer version had not been released instead. If more specific information came through, why would the production team cut it out? The same pattern keeps appearing. A reading works, and the recipient is convinced. Yet the evidence that would finally silence the doubters never seems to make it to the public. In a bid to silence the critics, Henry has tried scientific testing. On the Season 4 finale of Hollywood Medium, he underwent a brain scan to prove that his abilities are neurologically based. But skeptics were not impressed. They responded by claiming that a brain scan can only show that something is happening inside his head, but not where the information is coming from. They insisted that the brain scan cannot prove he is talking to the dead, any more than it can prove a chess grandmaster is receiving divine moves. These controversies have followed Tyler Henry for his entire career. He has been called a grief vampire, a fraud, and a skilled manipulator. He has been accused of playing medical odds, using hot reading techniques, and hiding behind editing. Through it all, he has maintained his composure and continued to build his brand. But there is one controversy that hit closer to home than any other. A scandal that exposed a failure in his abilities that he could not explain away. The scandal that shook Tyler Henry. The controversies Tyler Henry faced from skeptics and scientists were normal. He expected those. In fact, he had been dealing with doubters since he was a teenager. But the scandal that shook him in 2019 did not come from a critic or a debunker. It came from a DNA test that exposed a failure in his abilities that he still struggles to explain. His mother, Teresa Colewin, decided to take an at-home DNA test. She was in her 50s at the time, and she had no reason to expect anything unusual. She knew who her mother was, a woman named Stella Guerdi-Nestle, and she had grown up with the woman. The test was just for fun, a way to learn more about her ancestry. But when the results came back, it turned her entire life upside down. The woman who raised Teresa was not her biological mother. Teresa had spent more than 5 decades believing a lie. Her real biological family was out there somewhere, people she had never met. She later discovered that her actual mother had passed away in 2001, which meant Tyler Henry never got the chance to meet his biological grandmother. She died before he ever knew she existed. The truth about who Stella Nestle was made everything worse. Stella was a convicted murderer who had received 2 concurrent life terms in prison for killing 2 people in the 1970s. Stella had been sentenced for those crimes when Teresa was just 12 years old. Teresa's reaction to the DNA revelation was complicated. She admitted that she was happy Tyler did not have a grandmother who was a criminal. But the news was bittersweet. The siblings she grew up with and loved were not her biological siblings. That bond remained, and she said it did not matter because they would always be close. But the loss was real. She had been disconnected from her true family history without ever knowing it. But here's the shocking part of the story. Tyler Henry, the man who has given thousands of readings to strangers, who claims to communicate with the dead, and who has been called the most sought-after medium in the world, admitted that his abilities had been completely useless when it came to uncovering this family secret. He did not see it coming, and he had absolutely no idea. He explains it this way: his process can't be influenced by logic or prior information. Because he's personally involved in the case, his own emotions, expectations, and assumptions get in the way of his intuition. In other words, he can read strangers because he has no emotional attachment to what he discovers. But when it comes to his own family, he's too close. That emotional bias creates a blind spot his abilities can't break through to. Henry has openly admitted to feeling a deep sense of frustration. He realized he could help strangers find closure about their loved ones, yet he couldn't help his own mother uncover her past. This isn't the kind of failure skeptics point to in edited TV clips. It's a real, personal, and painful admission from someone whose identity is built on seeing what others cannot. When asked if he could communicate with his biological grandmother, the woman who died in 2001, he gave an honest answer. He said he had never felt her come through at all. The grandmother he never met, the woman he's connected to by blood, has never made contact with him. The lesson he took from this experience wasn't about his psychic ability. It was about trauma. He said it opened his eyes to the intergenerational impact of trauma and how secrets and lies can quietly pass through families over time. He stressed the importance of asking questions and confronting the unknown parts of family history. The DNA revelation may have shaken his reputation, but it wasn't the hardest thing he would face. That same year, his health began to fail in ways that had nothing to do with family secrets or skepticism. A life-threatening crisis was approaching, and nothing in his years of giving readings had prepared him for what was coming. The 2014 brain surgery. In February 2014, 1 month after his 18th birthday, Tyler Henry went to the emergency room believing he had a migraine. He had woken up with a headache that would not go away. 24 hours earlier, he had jogged 2 miles and worked in his garden, going about his day like any healthy teenager. There was no warning, and no reason to believe anything was seriously wrong. He was 18, young and active, and he assumed the doctors would send him home with a prescription and some advice about drinking more water. The doctors at the emergency room ordered a CT scan. It was a routine step, the kind of test they run when a young person comes in with a severe headache, just to rule out the worst possibilities. They did not expect to find anything. But when the results came back, the mood in the room shifted. The doctors looked at him differently, and one of them said something that has stayed with him ever since. He had come to get some relief and go home. Instead, he was being told that his case was unusual enough to concern a room full of medical professionals. The CT scan had revealed a grape-sized mass on his brain stem. The diagnosis was a congenital arachnoid brain cyst, which is a fluid-filled sac that he had been born with and that had remained silent for 18 years. According to Johns Hopkins Medicine, arachnoid brain cysts are among the most common types of brain cysts, and most people who have them never experience any symptoms at all. Sometimes, they live their entire lives without ever knowing the cyst exists. But Tyler Henry was not one of those people. His brain had begun swelling because the cyst was obstructing the normal flow of cerebrospinal fluid. What he had thought was a migraine was actually a medical emergency that required immediate attention. The situation escalated from there. He suffered a stroke as part of the crisis, a complication that added another layer of danger to an already serious diagnosis. A stroke at 18 is rare, and a stroke caused by a congenital brain cyst is even rarer. But there he was, a teenager in a hospital bed, facing something he never could have anticipated. The first night in the ICU was the worst of his life. He lay there with a headache that would not respond to anything the doctors gave him, and he remembers replaying a saying in his mind, over and over. Death stops for no one. He had heard that phrase many times before, but he had never truly understood it until he was lying in an ICU bed, wondering what would happen next. The uncertainty was the hardest part. Knowing that he had a stroke was not what bothered him. What bothered him was not knowing what the grape-sized mass on his brain stem was. That period of not knowing, he said, was the unsettling part. Once they identified the cyst as an arachnoid cyst, once they explained what it was and where it came from and how they planned to address it, he could finally face it. He could understand what was happening to his body and prepare himself for what came next. He wrote about this experience in a Facebook post from September 2014, several months after the surgery. In that post, he reflected on what the experience taught him. He said it showed him what really matters and what does not. Tyler said the experience showed him his strengths and his weaknesses, the places where he was resilient and the places where he was fragile. But more than anything, he said it showed him a small glimpse into the vast unknown and how close he had come to untimely figuring it out. Tyler spends his professional life talking about what comes after death. But lying in that ICU bed, he soon realized he was about to experience it for himself, much sooner than he ever expected. Tyler ended that Facebook post with a piece of advice that he has repeated many times since. He wrote, "It is vital that we do our best to appreciate every moment we have. Use your energy, focus, and concentration wisely. What you direct it at is what defines your life." Tyler Henry earned that wisdom in a hospital bed at 18 years old, with a stroke and a brain cyst and a team of surgeons preparing to operate. The surgery was successful. The cyst was addressed, the pressure was relieved, and he survived the stroke with no lasting effects that he has ever discussed publicly. He recovered and went on to build the career that has made him famous. But the experience never really left him. He has referenced it multiple times over the years, not as a distant memory, but as a living presence in his life. A reminder that every day is borrowed time. The brain cyst at 18 nearly killed him. The stroke that followed should have ended his career before it started. But Tyler Henry survived both. And for 11 years, he told himself the worst was behind him. But recently, Tyler has received a more heartbreaking diagnosis that changed everything he thought he knew about his future. This latest health crisis is forcing him to confront a reality he could no longer read, predict, or control. The 2025 Health Challenge. The year 2025 was supposed to mark a new beginning for Tyler Henry. Instead, it became one of the most physically and emotionally challenging periods of his life. He was planning to marry the man he had loved for nearly a decade. He was looking forward to a future that felt stable and secure. But behind the scenes, his body was falling apart in ways that no one, not even a man who claims to see the future, could have predicted. On May 7, 2025, Tyler Henry stood at the Beverly Hills courthouse with Clint Godwin. They had been together for nearly a decade, and the wedding was supposed to be a celebration of everything they had survived as a couple. During the ceremony, Clint looked up at the clock on the wall. It read 2:22. He later revealed that this number was a sign from his late grandfather, a small wink from the other side that everything was going to be okay. The couple wrote on Instagram that life with each other was an endless sleepover with a best friend, and that life was just getting started. Tyler added that he had known when they met nearly a decade ago that Clint would be the one, and that conviction only grew stronger with every day. He called it the best premonition he ever had. However, the timing of the wedding was not random. It happened just before something both of them knew was coming. Tyler had been experiencing symptoms for months. Short-term memory loss that made him feel like a goldfish. Difficulty finding words when he spoke. Slow responses to questions that should have been easy. The medical term for this is aphasia. And for a man whose entire career depends on clear communication, it was terrifying. He did not know what was causing it, but he knew something was wrong. The diagnosis came after he started asking questions. Doctors discovered a colloid tumor near the center of his brain. Columbia University describes these tumors as benign fluid-filled sacs that arise in an area called the third ventricle. Benign is a reassuring word, but it does not capture the danger. The tumor was blocking fluid from draining properly, and the pressure was building inside his skull. The fluid buildup, a condition called hydrocephalus, was causing the inflammation that led to his memory loss and aphasia. On May 14, 2025, exactly 1 week after his wedding, Henry Tyler went into surgery. He posted a photo from his hospital bed with a smile on his face, announcing that the brain surgery was a success. He had a great prognosis, he said. He noted that the staff was incredible and that he would be on bed rest for a month. The smile was real, but so was the exhaustion in his eyes. A month of bed rest meant a month of canceled shows, postponed readings, and the kind of silence that makes a performer bored. He had been through this before at the age of 18, and he knew what recovery looked like. However, what he did not expect was what happened next. Henry later confessed that the surgery did more than save his life. It also clarified his abilities. The brain inflammation that had been causing his aphasia and memory loss had also been clouding his readings. He had been struggling to find words on stage, struggling to communicate what he was seeing, and skeptics had pointed to those moments as evidence of cold reading. But the truth was stranger. The behaviors skeptics pointed to were actually symptoms of his brain condition. When the surgery reduced the inflammation, those symptoms improved. His thinking became clearer, the mental fog lifted, and his words came more easily. Unfortunately, the relief did not last long. By November 2025, the symptoms of swelling had returned, and the fluid was building up again. This time, doctors told him that another surgery was the best option. The procedure was to address the recurring cyst and swelling that had returned after the May operation. On November 13th, Tyler Henry went under the knife for the third time in his life. His husband, Clint, posted the update, reassuring the public that this final surgery could be the last. The surgery was a success. Doctors removed the recurring cyst, and the swelling began to go down. Tyler spent weeks recovering, resting at home with Clint by his side. The fog that had returned before the operation lifted again. And by early 2026, he was well enough to resume his live tour, an evening of hope and healing. He told audiences that without the brain inflammation, his readings had actually improved. The very thing that had nearly killed him had been clouding his abilities. Once it was gone, the clarity returned. The year 2025 did not go the way Tyler Henry planned. He got married, which was supposed to be the highlight. Instead, the highlight became surviving. The months that followed tested him in ways no newlywed should have to endure. But what do you think? Does Tyler Henry truly have psychic abilities? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.